At the first council my kin said, "She will shine briefly, then fade as all stars do." I smiled into the night sky. Eras passed. Oceans moved mountains. Cities crumbled into seafoam. Yet my star remained carved not in the heavens above but in the pillars of every empire built afterward. A quiet reminder that some fires are not extinguished by night, but become the dawn itself. They called it the First Council. Not out loud, of course. That would have sounded too self-important even for them. But it's what they called it among themselves: my uncles, a couple of cousins, and the two family friends who thought they were kin just because they'd spent 30 years sniffing around the store like dogs waiting for scraps. I remember every person who sat at that folding table in Aunt Glenda's basement that night. Howard, my uncle, sat at the head, arms crossed, gut hanging over his belt like authority gave him permission to let himself go. The room reeked of cigarette smoke, spilled beer, and something sour that always came from their kind of talk. They were trying to decide what to do about me, the girl Granddaddy had left the store to when he died in December. "I'm just saying," Howard grunted, voice thick with bourbon. "She ain't built for this. Never was. She'll shine briefly then fade. Like all stars do." That was the first time I really heard them speak plainly. Until then they'd kept their doubts wrapped in fake smiles and "How you holding up, sweetie?" But now that the will was read and it said in black and white that the store was mine, they dropped the act. She's got no husband, no kids. Who's gonna help her with inventory? Who's gonna do the books? Cousin Lyle added, "She'll run it into the ground inside a year." I stood at the foot of the stairs just out of view listening through the vent. And I smiled. Not because they were wrong, but because they were predictable. My name is Caroline Elise Warner. I'm the granddaughter of Thomas Warner, who built Warner Hardware in 1948 on a quiet stretch of Broad Street in Richmond, Virginia. I swept those floors from the time I could hold a broom, worked the register at 13, learned to rekey locks and mix paint before I had my learner's permit. Granddaddy knew what he was doing when he left the store to me, but they weren't about to let me keep it without a fight. They tried everything. Howard and Lyle claimed I'd forged the will. Alan, the drunk one, always in and out of construction jobs, tried to get the court to rule me financially incompetent. Said I was too young, too emotional. Said I had a history of depression. That part was true, I did, after Dad died. But I wasn't broken. I was just bruised. The lawyer Granddaddy had used, Mr. Benfield, was sharp as a knife and calm as a pond. He shut it all down. When the judge ruled in my favor, the courtroom was dead silent. Howard didn't look at me. Lyle sneered. Alan spit on the courthouse steps as I walked by. That same night, someone tossed a brick through the front window of Warner Hardware. They never proved it, but I knew who did it. And I fixed the glass myself. The store had been losing money for years. Granddaddy had too much pride to admit it, but the shelves were old, the lighting bad, and the competition was killing us. I stayed up nights sketching plans. I didn't want to just survive, I wanted to grow. I cleared out old stock, scrubbed every surface, and added things the Home Depot out on Hull Street didn't carry. Custom fittings, local lumber, handmade tools from Appalachian craftsmen. I borrowed just enough to replace the flooring, repaint the exterior, and install fresh signage. Warner Home and Garden, family owned since '48. Saturdays became workshop days. I ran kids' classes, then offered discounts to their parents. My foot traffic tripled in a year. And that's when Lyle came crawling back. He wore a navy blue blazer, like he thought it made him look legitimate. "I'm impressed," he said, smiling like a car salesman. "Really, you've done something special here, Elise. And I think it's time to take it to the next level." He talked about franchising, about brand value, about preserving Granddaddy's legacy, said he had investors lined up, and a lawyer ready to draw up the contracts. It wasn't what he said that fooled me. It was how tired I was. I was doing everything alone. I wanted to believe someone in my family finally saw my value. So I signed. And they took it. The ink was barely dry before things changed. They outvoted me on everything. Changed suppliers. Gutted the kids' programs. Raised prices. 6 months later, I was reassigned to a corporate outreach role, which meant nothing. Lyle stood in the parking lot, smug as ever. "It's still your name on the building," he said. "That's gotta count for something." I told him to keep the name. I didn't want it anymore. I lived lean, moved into a cheap duplex near Churchill, worked 2 jobs and kept my head down. Night I read, studied law, studied business, studied every franchise agreement I'd signed. By 1996, I was helping other women avoid the mistakes I made, setting up LLCs, teaching them how to read contracts. I became a ghost in the system, quietly building a network of loyal entrepreneurs. And watching. The first franchise to fall wasn't my doing, not directly. Cousin Ellen got arrested for DUI with a truck full of stolen copper wire. The store in Petersburg tanked within 3 months. But I bought the empty building, quietly, through a holding company I'd set up in Tennessee. I turned it into a garden supply shop, named it Dawn and Daughters. It did well. So I opened 2 more, then 5, all within 10 miles of Warner locations. And I crushed them. They noticed me by then. Warner Home and Garden's numbers were slipping, and Lyle blamed market saturation. But everyone in Richmond who still read the Times-Dispatch knew the truth. People chose to shop with Dawn and Daughters. They liked the feel of it, family-owned, woman-run, better service, better prices. Lyle came to see me. He walked into my flagship store, the one off Forest Hill Avenue, like he owned the place. "You're making a mistake," he said straight to my face. "You think taking shots at us is gonna make people forget you threw away the Warner name?" I stared at him for a good 5 seconds. Then I said, "You threw away the name. I just stopped waiting for your permission to reclaim it." He left without buying anything. But I saw the fear in his eyes. That's when I knew I wasn't just a nuisance anymore. I was a threat. They sued me for brand infringement. Claimed Dawn and Daughters was confusingly similar to Warner Home and Garden because of its visual layout and overlapping products. It was a weak case, but it dragged me through 8 months of legal bills, missed sleep in courtrooms. They thought it would break me. Thought I'd fold. But I didn't represent myself this time. I'd learned. And the firm I hired? Run by a woman, I helped get her first office space. We won. Not only did the judge dismiss the suit, he slapped them with my legal fees and cited intentional harassment. They stopped coming for me directly after that. But the attacks didn't end. Lyle went petty. Started a whisper campaign in the business community. Said I used stolen family recipes for the paint blends. Said I cheated suppliers. Paid off inspectors. Hell, he even started telling people I'd had an affair with a city councilman to secure my building permits. It almost worked. I lost 2 vendors and 3 longtime clients in a single week. But I fought back the only way I knew how, by pulling everything into the light. I published every invoice, every permit, every inspection report on my website, Transparency, so clean it embarrassed them. Then I ran a feature ad in Style Weekly. Some men build legacies. Some try to steal them. I just keep building. Caroline Elise Warner. The ad went viral as a local newspaper ad could in 2007. 2 more Warner stores shut down that year. The economy tanked. And Warner Home and Garden was already bleeding. Their overhead was too high. Their debt was too deep. And their reputation was trash among the people who actually shopped at local stores. By fall, the chain had shrunk to 3 locations. The original Warner store, my store, had gone into foreclosure. I watched the listing for 3 weeks. Just waited. Then I showed up at the auction. I didn't hide who I was. I stood on the courthouse steps, check in hand, and watched Lyle's face fall when they read my name as the winning bidder. "You think this makes you the hero?" he asked afterward. "No," I said. "It makes me the last one standing." The building was a shell. Gutted. Stripped down to beams and broken windows. But I walked through it like I was home. I found one thing left behind. The old ledger, locked in a bottom drawer. Granddaddy's handwriting. My name in the margins. That night I reopened the books. And the fire I'd held for 30 years? It roared to life. I didn't bring back the Warner name. Too stained. I called it Elise and Company because it was mine. And I made sure everyone knew what that meant. The grand reopening had over 600 people. We shut down the block for it. Local press came. So did the mayor. He gave a little speech about resilience. And I smiled politely while thinking about every night I cried alone in that duplex. Every family dinner I wasn't invited to. Every time they told me I'd fade. That night, I stood outside under the old marquee and looked up at the stars. I didn't shine briefly. I burned. And they all of them had to live in my daylight now. I thought it was over. I'd reclaimed the original store. Lyle was broke and bitter. Warner Home and Garden was down to one crumbling location out in Mechanicsville run by Alan, who looked like a half-sober ghost every time I passed him in town. But revenge doesn't settle just because one side loses. Sometimes it mutates. A new chain popped up that year: Greenforge Supplies. Shiny branding. Modern signage. Same target market. Same product range. But under the surface it was rotten. I did some digging. Turns out the company was a silent partnership. And one of the silent partners? My niece Natalie. The same Natalie I gave a graduation check to. The one who used to ride on my hip while I stocked shelves in the old Warner store. She was only in her 20s, but they propped her up as the face of it: fresh, young, female-owned. It looked too much like my story. Too intentional. A few months after Greenforge opened 2 locations near mine, I had a break-in at Elise & Company. No money stolen. No smashed windows. But the computers were wiped. Inventory data. Customer accounts. Business plans gone. I found the back door pried open with professional precision. No cameras back there. My fault. I'd gotten comfortable. The police shrugged. Could be a random hit, they said. But I knew better. Greenforge started carrying identical product bundles. To mine the next month: same labels, same vendor codes. Even the custom garden kits I'd spent years refining. Natalie had found a way to get inside my systems. Maybe through one of the part-time clerks I'd hired from her college. Maybe something else. But this wasn't just business. This was personal. I couldn't go after her the way I did the others. She was younger, smarter in some ways, and knew how to play the media. So I flipped the script. I brought in every woman I'd helped over the years, the ones who ran their own hardware shops, flower stores, repair services. I started a formal collective, Firehand Women's Cooperative. We pooled marketing, shared resources, created a loyalty card good at every shop in the network. We published a list of values: transparency, ownership, heritage, and community. Greenforge? They were just a shiny facade. But I needed proof of what they'd done. A former Greenforge intern came to me, a kid named Sarah. Said she quit after being told to copy my store layout and gather info on my pricing strategies by any means necessary. She even had screenshots, emails, one of them from Natalie herself. Elise is stuck in the past. If she won't let the brand evolve, we'll evolve over her. I didn't go to the police. I went to the press. The article hit Richmond BizSense in early March. Headline: Local startup accused of corporate espionage leaks link Greenforge to Elise & Company. Sabotage. It caught fire online. The backlash was swift. Natalie went silent. Her partners scrambled. One store closed within the week. By summer, half of them were gone. I never got an apology. But I got my customer base back. And I made damn sure to thank Sarah publicly, offered her a full-time job in marketing. She accepted. Then came the letter. No return address. Just my name, written in shaky handwriting. It was from Howard, my uncle, the one who said I'd fade like a star. He was in hospice, lung cancer. Said he wanted to talk before he died. I didn't know him anything, but I went. He looked like a shadow of himself, bones under paper skin, hooked up to machines he no longer trusted. You proved me wrong, he said, voice rasping. I don't say that much. I didn't do it for you, I told him. I know. That's why it worked. He asked if I hated him. I didn't lie. Yes, I said. He nodded, coughed, and laughed a little. Good. That fires what they never saw coming. I left before he died. Didn't go to the funeral. But I kept the letter. After Howard died, I thought I'd feel something: relief, triumph, maybe peace. But what I felt was tired. Everything I'd done, every store I opened, every battle I fought, it had all started from a place of pain. A place of needing to prove I belonged. That I wasn't a flicker. That I wasn't disposable. And I won. Everyone knew it. Elise & Company became more than a business. It became a symbol. Women from across the South drove hours just to shake my hand, to say I'd helped them believe in themselves. But winning didn't bring back the years I lost. It didn't fill the chair at my birthday dinners. It didn't mend what got broken between me and the rest of the world. The pandemic hit, and it hit hard. We stayed open, did deliveries, supported our workers with hazard pay, but the weight of years finally cracked something in me. I was 61.
No spouse.
No children. My whole life was a monument to revenge. And now the world was standing still. One night I stayed late at the original store. Just me and the hum of the security lights. I walked through every aisle, touching the shelves I built, the displays I curated like they were photos from a life I barely remembered living. I sat in the office, pulled out the old ledger. Granddaddy's handwriting. My name. I cried for the first time in a long time. Not because I lost, because I won and still felt hollow. Natalie came to see me. She walked into Elise and Company on a Tuesday, hair tied back, a tired look in her eyes. I want to talk, she said. Really talk. I didn't make it easy. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't smile. She sat across from me and said the words I never expected. You were right. I tried to steal what you built because I didn't believe I could build anything myself. She told me she'd been cut out of Green Forge. Lawsuits were still pending. She was broke. Ashamed. I should have come to you for help, she said. Not tried to replace you. There was a long silence. Then I said, you weren't the only one who made mistakes. I had let revenge become my reason for living. Every day was about outlasting them, outbuilding them, proving something. I hadn't dated anyone seriously in 30 years. I'd pushed away friends. I kept people at arm's length because I thought they'd see my cracks and turn on me, just like my family did. But not everyone was them. And not everyone deserved to burn. So I did something I never thought I would. I forgave her. Natalie started working with the co-op. Quietly, behind the scenes, learning everything she thought she already knew. She listened. She helped. She owned what she'd done. By 2023, she was leading a small team helping women-owned shops in underserved areas get funding and land rights. I let her. Because maybe fire isn't just about destroying what failed. Maybe it's about lighting the way for someone else so they don't stumble in the dark the way I did. I sold Elise and Company, not to a corporation, not to a man in a suit. I sold it to the co-op at a price they could afford, with a contract that kept everything local and woman-run. I didn't walk away rich, but I walked away free. I moved to a small cottage in the Blue Ridge. I plant my own tomatoes. I read. I sit under the stars at night. And sometimes, I still hear Howard's voice in the back of my mind. She'll shine briefly, then fade. He was wrong. I didn't fade. I burned, steady and bright, until there was nothing left for them to cast a shadow over. And when they look at the landscape now, every shop, every store, every woman who said, because of her, I didn't give up, they don't see a flicker. They see daylight. And they remember. Some fires don't burn out. They become the sun.